Hey everybody, it's Gayla Burt, your teacher for Rankin County Adult Education. We've been missing you guys and we just wanted to find a way to connect with you, maybe share a few tips and tools with you to keep you on a forward momentum as you prepare to take your HiSET or GED test. And we wanted to encourage you to do that because it won't be long before the government's going to let us open back up and we'll have that testing site available for you. Also, GED has some things in the works that might be able to help us, even if we can't open up right away, but we're thinking that's going to happen really quickly. So we don't want you to wait to the last minute to do your preparations. So we're glad you joined us today. We're going to talk a little bit about how to prepare to write your essay and also just to take in general your English test on your GED or HiSET. Also, it's going to help you in other ways. We're going to talk about that as well. But before we get to that point, I just want to encourage you to keep connecting with your KET or your Essential Ed programs from your home computer so that you can still continue to work. If you're not sure how to do that, at the end of our presentation today, you're going to find email addresses and a way you can connect with us so that we can help you stay connected with us in the process of learning. So we want to make sure you're hooked up to KET or Essential Education. Also, don't forget you can work on Smart Start as well. So Andrew can help you with that. You can contact him if you want to go to our Rankin County website, Rankin County Adult Education. You'll find his email information there, or you can just email me and I'll connect you with him. And also, don't forget, Khan Academy is a great resource for you. Anytime you want to learn a little more about math or English or any of the subjects that you're going to be taking a test on for your high school equivalency, you can always go to Khan Academy and get a little extra practice on that there. So let's get started on our lesson today. We're going to talk about some tools that are going to help you with writing. And writing is a thing that people either seem like they either love it or they hate it. But one of the reasons I think that people are a little bit discouraged about writing is because it's something that's in your head that you're trying to get onto your pen and paper. And it's a little bit daunting to know that after you write something, people are going to be reading it and they're going to be critiquing what you shared out of your heart. So we want to make sure that you have all the confidence you need. So when it's time to write, you can get going. You don't have to sit and ponder a long time. You'll already be equipped to know how to put those words out there because you've learned one thing, the grammatical thing that you need to know to do your writing correctly. And then you won't feel so afraid or a little daunting about getting in there and getting it done. So don't forget how important writing skills really are for you. Now, a lot of people are like, well, what's this going to do for me in the future? Why do I even care that I'm a good writer? Well, one of the reasons you care is because people are going to judge your ability to function in the particular environment you're going into by your ability to express yourself. So you want to be able to prepare for college, for your ACT or for a college entrance exam, or maybe just to write your application for college. You want to be able to write something that makes sense and that is grammatically correct. It's also good to be able to write well when you're doing a resume. You're not just putting facts down. Often they'll ask you to write a paragraph or write a paper about something that has to do with the job for which you're applying. You want to be able to do it well. So being able to write well helps you with that. You want to be a better employee. And a lot of people don't realize that even jobs that have to do with technology or math or even some blue collar skills, there are times when you're going to have to write something and you want to be able to put a very good face on what you're doing for your job by being able to communicate well in writing. And then, of course, whenever you write well, you're also most likely, if you know the skills to write, you probably know the skills to speak well. And being able to present yourself well by the way you speak is also very important. So don't feel like you're just spinning your wheels when you're learning about things that we're going to talk about today, but realize that it's something that's really going to help you with your future goals. So let's get started. Now, I was thinking about this crazy thing that I've been seeing. It's circulated a while ago, and now it's recirculating again. This crazy shoe that everybody is not in agreement on as to what color it is. When I look at this particular picture, I see green and gray. Now, I've seen this particular picture on other formats before, and it looked pink and gray to me, or pink and white. So I don't know what the difference was, but today I'm seeing green. So what color are you seeing? Some of you are going to say pink. Some of you are going to say green. So leave a comment below and let's see how much agreement we have on whether we're seeing green or whether we're seeing pink. Now, one thing that we have to agree on, we don't have to agree on the color of this crazy sneaker, but we do have to agree when we're writing or when we're speaking on subject and verb. Subject and verb agreement is one of those things that I've noticed as I grade and I look at some of the practice writing you do for your high school equivalency. Some of our students have some problems with subject verb agreement. Now, you'll notice as we go through the exercises today, some of them are just easy because we know what they sound like, and it just doesn't sound right if you do it wrong. So that's a good thing. But what's not so good is we can't always rely on just going by the way it sounds, because sometimes it doesn't sound right. But if we go by the rules, we'll realize what the right answer is. So let's keep going. This poor little fella, he just gave up. When he was working on subject verb agreement, he couldn't get it to sound right. The big dog run. Well, we know that's not right, but he just gave up and said, my subject and verb have agreed to disagree. Well, that's okay for this little guy, but it's not going to be okay for you. As you begin your work on trying to get your high school equivalency, you want to make sure your subject and verb always agrees. So let's start from the beginning. What is a subject and what is a verb? Think about that for a minute. If you want to take a minute just to think about it, or you might even want to jot it down just for future reference. What's a subject and what's a verb? You might want to pause a minute and think. Okay, here we go. What's a subject? A subject of a sentence is the person, place, thing, or idea that's doing or being something. That sounds familiar to most of you, I bet. The person, place, or thing, that's a noun or a pronoun. So most of the time when you're looking at a sentence, the subject is going to be a noun or a pronoun. So you can kind of let that be one of your first guides to make sure you're finding your subject. It doesn't always go that way, like so straightforward, but usually it is. Now, what's a verb? Just remember, a verb is an action word. A verb in a sentence is an action word that describes what the subject is doing. So you've got your subject and your verb. Now you can go forward. Okay, so let's look at this sentence. We want to make sure that the subject and a verb agrees in number. And that's really kind of how the whole thing goes about your subject and your verb agreeing. So just remember, this is a really good rule. You can jot this down. Some of you are looking at this online and have the potential or the capability of even doing like a screenshot and printing something. You might want to do that and just keep this on hand. But just remember that singular subjects take singular verbs. Plural subjects take plural verbs. So for example, in the singular form, he takes music lessons. He is what? He is the subject. Takes is the verb. So you've got he is your subject. Takes is your verb. So we know that he is the singular. Takes is singular. Look at she has been sleeping. She is the subject. Has is the verb. She has been sleeping. We're going to talk a little bit about how you can tell what's singular and plural in that verb. But by looking at this, these are pretty straightforward, and you can almost tell by the way it sounds which one's right or wrong. Let's look at some plural forms. They take music lessons. They have been sleeping. Those are your plural forms. They agree. They is plural, and take is the plural form of the verb. But how did we know that take was the plural form of the verb? Let's look at that and find out. It's really something that's kind of like opposites, because you think that if the subject is plural, then you would think that the verb that goes with it would have an S on it. Since the subject has an S, why doesn't the verb has an S? But it's always opposites. The cakes look delicious. The cake, which is singular, look at that verb. It has an S on it. So it's like it's opposites. Opposites attract, remember that. So cakes is plural. So look, the verb does not have an S. Cake is singular, so looks, that particular verb, has an S. Remember, when it comes to subject-verb agreement, always look at the verb. The plural, which you would think has an S, does not on the verb. The singular, which you would think would not have an S, does have an S on the verb. So this is just a general rule. If the noun or the verb, if the noun or the subject is singular, then the verb will include an S. All right. Now, right away, some of y'all are going to tell me, no, that does not hold true. When you've got I and you as your subject, that doesn't work with that particular rule. And you're right. This is one of those exceptions. One of the reasons that you learn rules in English is so you can also find the exceptions to the rule, and this is one of them. So when you have I and you, they're singular subjects, but they always take the plural form of the verb. Stop the video just a minute and think of some examples of that. You might want to even jot some down. Okay, here's one. I like ice cream. I is a singular word, just like Mary is a singular subject. I is singular subject, Mary is a singular subject. But when you use the word I for a subject, like is really the plural form. So you just have to remember that you say, I like ice cream, and Mary likes ice cream. Let's look at the word you. It's the same thing. You is singular, but the verb does not look singular. It's the same kind of a verb you would use in a plural form, but so you don't put the S there. You love ice cream. Mary loves ice cream. Remember, normally when you have a singular verb, you put an S, a singular noun or subject, you put an S on the verb. But in this instance, you don't. You just have to remember the exceptions that breaks the rules, and this is one of them. Did you hear me? I just made that terrible subject-verb agreement mistake. You just have to remember the exceptions that break the rules. Okay, so here's another thing that will help you. The number of the subject usually is not determined by a word in a phrase or clause following the subject. Example, that dog with big teeth scares me. Okay, what's our subject? The subject is dog, but you've got that clause or that phrase afterward with that word teeth in it. Well, dog is singular, but teeth is plural. So what in the world do we do about the verb? Well, remember, when the subject is not determined usually by a word in a phrase or clause following the subject. So that dog, that particular dog, one dog, which is singular, scares me. Remember that verb is going to have that S on it because it's a singular subject. That dog scares me. So you just have to kind of not think about that little clause or that phrase in the middle. That dog scares me. Okay, let's look at the next one. Earl, as well as his older sister, is a fantastic athlete. Well, you have this phrase, as well as his older sister. Well, that makes you think that we're talking about Earl and his sister. But remember, the subject is Earl, not his older sister, or not the combination of the two. So Earl is going to be singular, so the subject is going to be is. Earl is a fantastic athlete. Okay, so here's just a little bit of an exercise for you. I'm going to jump off for a minute and let you look at this. You can pause your video. You can write down the answer on a piece of paper if you like, or if you want to print this out, you can, and look at it as we go over the examples and the answers in just a moment. I'll give you a minute to do your work. Okay, we're back now. So let's look at what we've got here. All right, here we go. The capital of Mexico is Mexico City because we're talking about the capital of Mexico. It's one thing, it's the capital. So you're going to have a singular verb. The plaza at the center of the city covers or cover the side of an ancient Aztec temple. So your answer is going to be covers. The plaza is one thing, it's singular, so you're going to put an S on that verb. The plaza covers the site of an ancient Aztec temple. You don't worry about all this stuff right here because this, the plaza, is your subject. Number 3, today people call the plaza the Zocalo. Today is going to be your subject. It's a singular thing. And even though you've got this people in here, today people call. Ooh, I just did the wrong thing, didn't I? Nope. What is your subject? Is it going to be today or people? Obviously, from what you're seeing here, people is going to be your subject. People is going to be more than one. So you're going to have a plural here. People call the plaza. So don't worry about this word. This is just something that's modifying people. So people is your subject. That one was a little bit tricky. It caught me at the beginning. People call the plaza the Zocalo. All right, let's look at number 4. Okay, many buildings of historical and architectural interest surrounds or surround. It shouldn't be surround because you got all this words or verbiage in here. This word interest kind of throws you off, but buildings is plural. So you're going to have surround with no S. Buildings surround. Got it? Okay, here we go. The City Hall, as well as the National Palace, is it going to be is or are? Is. So the City Hall is. City Hall, singular. You can just eliminate this in your thought processes right now because this is a phrase or a clause that really has nothing to do with whether it's singular or plural. The City Hall is on the Zocalo. Hope you got that. And if you need to, if you have questions, give me a little shout out on the comments below or send me an email. We'll discuss it. Okay, we're going to keep going. We've got a paragraph here I'm going to let you work on. And you'll notice that as we've been working on these problems, I even missed a few of them. I have to think through them, a few of them really hard because some of them are tricky. So don't be worried or concerned if you miss them every now and then. Just kind of make a note of what you missed, why it took you a little longer to figure it out. Then you can go back and try them again. I bet you get it the second time. Okay, let's look at this paragraph that I'm about to give you. It's going to be just like this example, the arts of illusion. They're going to have is on there. You're going to cross it out, put the correct verb form on there. So here's your paragraph. I'm going to back off here just a minute and let you do your work. You can pause the screen and I'll get back with you in just a minute. Okay, hopefully you're back and let's work on this a little bit. Few viewers of the film Superman the movie know or knows. It's viewers, that's a lot, that's a group, that's more than one. So you're going to use knows. The viewers of the movie know, not knows. They made the mistake, you're going to fix it. The viewers know how Christopher Reeve soars through the air. Okay, let's look at the second one. Credit, is that one thing or two things or a group or what? Credit is going to be singular. Credit goes. That go should be goes. Go to the special effects crews. Okay, let's look at the next one. These masters, singular or plural? That's right, it's going to be plural. These masters create. It shouldn't be creates. You got to take the S off because you've got a plural, no S on the plural. The masters of illusion create the tricks to make the impossible appear to happen. Okay, 14. Superman, together with Lois Lane. Okay, Superman is what? One person, it's going to be singular. But what about this crazy little together with Lois Lane? Does that make it two things or two people? Superman, remember that clause doesn't really have anything to do with Superman as far as whether it's plural or singular. Superman were suspended? No, it should be was. Superman, together with Lois Lane, was suspended on wires from huge cranes. Okay, 15. The actors in the scene were moving, were moving. I don't know if I can get, there we go. All these funny little things are popping up. Okay, the actors in the scene were moving only their heads and arms while films, is that singular or plural? Singular, of rushing scenery was projected. Okay, films is plural, was should be plural. So it's the actors in the scenes were moving only their heads and arms while films of rushing scenery were projected. I may have said erroneously at the beginning that this was a singular. This is plural. Films, plural, of rushing scenery were projected is the correct answer. Got it? All right, here we go. All right, here's another thing that tricks me up all the time. These are the ones that I have to really sit and ponder because it's not straightforward. This is when you've got a collective noun, like the word committee. That's like a group. Sometimes it can be used as one thing, as just the committee itself, but then sometimes it can be committee as the different individuals as a collective unit. So it's really important that you look at the way the context plays out in the sentence. So let's go with the committee is meeting today. Committee is thought of as a unit, so it would be singular. The committee is meeting today. The example number 2, the committee are discussing. That sounds kind of funny, and at first glance and at first hearing it, you don't want to say are there. But the committee, if you look at it, they're discussing with each other. So there's a bunch of people discussing something. So they're like individual people. So the committee is going to be plural. The plural committee they are discussing several issues. That's the tricky thing that you always have to work on a little bit harder. So here's some examples. Why don't you work on this and we'll get right back with you. Okay, here we're back and here's your answers. Okay, each Christmas, now this first one is kind of tricky. Each Christmas, Marco's family, should you say exchange or exchanges gifts with one another? My ear wants to say exchanges. Each Christmas, Marco's family exchanges gifts with one another. But family is plural. It's a group of people. It's a lot of people exchanging with each other. That's one of those things that's really tricky here. So the word is actually going to be exchange, not exchanges. These are some of those you may have to kind of sit and ponder over a little bit. Number 2, the committee, that collective committee in charge of the project, makes its decision. So the committee as one unit made the decision. The committee in charge of the project makes its decision at 3 o'clock today. So that one's a little tricky. It's looked at as a singular unit. Okay, number 3, Griselia's class. They're looking at it as one unit. Griselia's class, singular. Is it going to be has or have? It's going to be has. Chosen its theme for the annual dance. Okay, jump to 4. Far off the shore, a fleet of ships. This is the one that threw me off, but you have to look at the whole sentence and get the context. Far off the shore, a fleet of ships. Look at the whole sentence there. Moves or move. The ships move because they're talking about a group of ships, a fleet, but it's a bunch of ships that are moving all around. So they're not moving in tandem. They're moving here and there. All these ships are moving away one by one. So it's a bunch of ships moving. So it's plural. Far off the shore, a fleet of ships move away from the island one by one. That one was a little tricky for me. Let's look at this way that we approach subject and verb agreement. This is when you've got compound subjects or more than one subject together. It kind of throws us off as to whether or not it's going to be a plural or singular. So let's look at this. For compound subjects joined by or nor, the verb should agree with the subject nearer the verb. So let's look for the subject that's closest to the verb in this first sentence. Okay, you would normally think that parents and grandfather, that would be like two things together. And so we would make your subject plural. So then your verb would need to be plural. but it's not going to be that way. You look for the subject that's closest to the verb. So in the first example, drives is your verb. It would be drive or drives. Grandfather is singular, just one grandfather. So your verb is going to be singular. Okay? Your grandfather drives. My grandfather drives me. My parents or my grandfather drives me to soccer practice. Okay? Let's look at this example number 2. My grandfather, in this particular way to look at it, would be a plural parents. Now, they've got that written wrong on there. I would think that parents should say plural up there. I'm not sure exactly why they did it that way. I might have to study up on that as to why they put an S there. But grandfather or my parents drive me. Grandfather is singular, parents would be plural, but plural is closest to the verb. I think they just made a mistake on that. Plural subject parents is near to the verb drive. So parents drive. My grandfather, poor grandfather, he just gets left out here because we're not going to look for him when we try to decide what kind of verb to use. My parents drive me to soccer practice, okay? Always look when you've got a compound subject, look for the verb to agree with the subject nearer the verb. Whatever verb is closest, whatever subject is closest to your verb, decide if it's plural or if it's going to be singular, and then you'll know what kind of verb to use. It looks like an example 2, they should have put a P over parents because parents is clearly going to be plural. Okay, let's go on. Now, I just want to give you a few tips to help you. So we're concerned about being self-confident as whether or not we are going to be self-confident as a writer. We don't usually have normal confidence whenever we know that we're going to be taking something that we created, we're putting it on a piece of paper, and people are going to be looking at it. It's kind of like if you're going to be an artist and sometimes I like to draw or paint things, and I'm always a little bit reticent about putting that out there for somebody to look at. It's the same thing when you write. You don't want other people to get a glimpse of what's in your head or your heart, much less critique the way you put it out there. So if you become more confident as a writer and you become more, it becomes like more of a normal, just day-to-day thing of putting those thoughts on paper, then it'll be easier for you. So you might want to try by exercising your writing muscles by just writing every day. You could keep a journal, and it doesn't have to be like a long dissertation that you're going to write. It could be 3 or 4 sentences, but just get used to daily or every few days putting your thoughts out there on a pen, a paper, maybe on your computer. You can use your notes or your iPad or just whatever is easiest for you, or whatever you find just kind of fits your style. But get used to writing some things during this quarantine time when we're kind of sheltering in place. It's a great time at the end of the day. Get out your iPad or get out your phone, go to notes, and just write a few sentences and get used to just saying what's in your heart, saying what's in your head. I've had a really bad day today, and during this quarantine, my kids are driving me crazy. Maybe tomorrow will be better. That'd be an example of what you could write. But what you're doing is you're not worrying a whole lot about grammar right now. You're just wanting to get used to putting those thoughts out there in writing so that you'll get more accustomed to that. Then the second thing is to read. We know that the best writers are readers. The people who make the best grades on their English portion of their test are usually people who make good grades on their reading as well. So we want you to be able to read and write. So just get used to getting something out every few days or every day. It could just be the news section of an internet site. It could be a cartoon. It could be a novel. It could be anything. Just pick up something and read it. But every now and then, glance at the article you're reading and see if you can pick up what kind of style this writer has, or see when they maybe, today we looked at subject verb agreement. You could today read something and look at the places where they had to really be intentional about making sure their subjects and their verbs agreed with each other. In a way, it's kind of fun. Don't get all caught up in the right and wrong way right now. Just get caught up in the exercise and exercise those muscles to read and write. We want to make sure that you take some time to work on this at home. when we're not right here together in this video. So I'm leaving you this exercise you can work on. You can send me the answers if you'd like to at GAYL500@rcsd.ms. That's my email address. Connect with me there anytime. You can send me the answers there. If you want to, you can make a copy, a screenshot of this page and do it that way, or just say number one, the answer is whatever. And that way you can have a little accountability and make sure that you've learned it correctly and you're doing it correctly. So please do connect with us during this time. We want you to email us. You can email me at the address you see in front of you there. You can connect with us on Facebook at Rankin County Adult Education. You can Google us and find our website at Rankin County Adult Education. And there you'll find some other ways to connect with Andrew or other folks at the Adult Education Center. We hope we can get together with you soon face to face, but until we can, we hope that you are having a really good experience during this quarantine, even though you may be going crazy. We hope you're well, and we hope your family is well. We think about you often, and you take care of yourself, and we will see you soon. Oh, don't forget, you can connect with me on Remind. There's the information there. You can text 81010, and you can text the message at 4CD2KD2. Then we can text each other anytime. See you later. Bye.